Hello and good morning, intuitive butterflies. Good Monday morning to this November the 28th. How's everyone doing? How's everyone feeling? We are almost into the last month of 2022. So I have a trigger alert for everyone. One of the things that I had said I wanted to do is keep this channel politically correct. But I've got a little bee in my bonnet this morning. So when I was significantly younger, I would watch political debates coming into elections. I would listen closely to what the politicians were promising they were going to do. And then they would get into power. And a couple months later, they would say that they hadn't promised things that I know that they had promised. And I would say to my parents, why isn't the media pulling out the old videotape? We know that mainstream media keeps recordings, and we're talking like going back into the 80s, 90s, maybe into the early 2000s, before the internet was really a thing, and everybody on the planet was pretty much communicating and had the capacity to be able to both make their own videos as well as download information that had come out, that things that had been said and done. You know, in the 80s and 90s, we didn't really have the capacity to do that. I mean, I guess we could have put it onto a VHS or a beta tape if we had it at home, and we could record some of what the politicians were promising in their political rallies, so that we ourselves would have the proof when we were gaslit by the politician saying, I never said that. I had a friend that worked at one of the large Canadian mainstream media outlets. And after one such incident where a politician had made quite a number of promises during a campaign, and then after the politician was elected, he said, I never said that. And so I contacted my friend at the mainstream media outlet and said, where's that tape? I know I heard him say that. We as a public are being gaslit. My friend actually said, oh, I don't know, we can't find it. We're not allowed to pull that type of thing out. That goes back to the 90s, people. But now with the internet, we have the capacity to pull out proof of what people have said and done, especially when it's caught on video. And it doesn't matter whether it was said in French or English or any other language. If it came out of a politician's mouth, then they said it. So like I said, trigger alert. I don't want my channel removed. All I'm saying is that on Friday, a very prominent Canadian politician said something under oath that was 100% untrue. He lied. And at the time on Friday, I don't have the technology. I don't have the capacity to work with technology. I said, somebody needs to create a video of the prominent politician saying, I never said that. And then knit the clip where he said that and play those two back to back. And when I got up this morning, somebody had done so. and a copy of that is up on YouTube. I'll put a link in the description for you. So, without any further ado, I'm finished my rant. Trigger alert over. Let's move on. So for those of you who are new to the channel, if you like what you see on Mondays, please like and subscribe to my channel. So what I do every Monday is I like to give people an overall view of the energies that they are going to be experiencing this week. And because we have such a vast diversity on our planet, I don't just do one reading, I do 3 readings every Monday. And the way that I go about doing those readings is I ask you to go into a light meditative state. And then I present 3 rocks, gems, or trinkets. And I ask you to decide which one you are attracted to. And then I will pull 1 or 2 cards. I say 1 or 2 because sometimes more than one jumps out. And that will give you an overall feeling of the energies that will be dominant for you this week. I also have a quick peek at the bottom card of each of the decks. And the bottom card is the shadow for the week. It's the energy that's being a little bit hidden from you, something that's kind of bubbling and brewing below the surface that you may not be aware of, but you should be aware of. All right. So without any further ado, I always start by lighting a candle and calling in some helpers. So today I would like to call in the great creator of all that is, the energies of Mother Earth, the angels, the ancestors, and the animals. We call in the 4 directions, the north, the south, the east, and the west. And we call in the 5 elements, earth, air, water, fire, and ether. And we give thanks for the presence of these. And we ask them to help and assist in the card readings today so that people receive the answers that help to guide them through the week for their highest good. And I found out today, well, not today, I found out this week that there's a name that I didn't know about. So I'm just going to go briefly into this. Ever since I was a little girl, I've had the capacity to affect electronics, consciously or unconsciously. Sometimes it was done consciously. It was kind of like a childhood parlor trick. You know, I'd walk past something and turn a light off without touching it. And I never knew that there was a name for doing that kind of thing. This gift, I guess you could call it, is also a curse sometimes because it affects the electronics that I use in order to try and bring you these videos each week. And I found out this week that I think it was the millennials that came up with the name sliders. And so I'm a slider. I affect the electronics that are around me. So each week I also light a little bit of sage and I waft it around and I cleanse and I clear the cards that I use, but I also bring it around with the intention of bringing the energy down so that my electronics work properly when I'm doing anything that involves computers. So anyway, just a little bit of extra information this week. Okay, without any further ado, I'm going to ask you to go into a light meditative state. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes for just a moment. Bring your own energies down. Bring your own anxieties down. Rest your awareness on my voice. And when you're ready, open your eyes again and have a look at the screen. So this week, I'm going to be presenting 3 rocks, gems, or trinkets. And I'd like you, while you're in this calmer state, to decide which one you are drawn towards. So the first one is the purple and green fluorite point. So if you are intuitively drawn towards this green and purple fluorite point, I'll be pulling cards for you from deck number 1 this week. The second this week is a desert rose. So if you are intuitively drawn towards this little desert rose, I'll be pulling cards for you this week from deck number 2. And third, we have a giant piece of moonstone. So if you are intuitively drawn towards this piece of moonstone, it is attached to a necklace. If you are intuitively drawn towards this piece of moonstone, I'll be pulling cards for you this week from deck number 3. So without any further ado, let's move things off to the sides and let's get started. For those of you that selected the fluorite point, I'll be pulling cards for you this week from the Angels and Ancestors deck. And let's get going. All right. Card for the dominant energy for those who selected the fluorite point this week. Oh, and we had a card that actually flipped right over this week. So for those of you that selected the fluorite point, you have the star ancestor. Follow the voice of your soul. Okay. So your dominant energy this week, for those of you that selected the fluorite point, is for you to get in touch more with yourself, get in touch with your soul, and really, really get in touch with what your purpose is. Now, some people believe that their soul purpose is to become fireman, a nurse, teacher, whatever the case may be. But really what this card is talking about is going even deeper and figuring out what your soul purpose is, what that voice within you is calling you to do. And on this level, we're talking about how do you affect those around you? And that is part of your life purpose. Is your intention or your soul's purpose to make people laugh? Is your soul purpose to help people understand compassion or empathy? Is your soul's purpose to show people that love is possible at all times? We each have within us this very, very deep gift that goes well beyond the careers that we choose to call our purpose. We have a purpose that's deeper. And so this week, those of you that selected this fluorite point, this is the dominant energy this week, is to really, really get in touch with what is that deeper purpose? What is that voice? And to really follow it, to put it into practice. Maybe part of what you are meant to do is to help people to see the truth, to help people lower that veil of the collective gaslighting that's been going on. You know, there are a lot of purposes out there, and I can't touch on every single one of them. But this week, for those of you that selected this stone, that is your purpose. That is the energy to really, really figure it out. My son, for example, I think that his purpose is to help people laugh. And not necessarily in a comedic way, but to help them to laugh at themselves and not be so serious all the time. And that's a true gift, that he has the ability to be able to do that. So have a look this week and really, really explore that. Maybe you want to do that in a meditation. And then once you have that, follow that voice and share your gift. Okay? Your shadow energy this week is the mountains. Stand your ground. Okay? What this means is that for a lot of us that got this card this week, we know what our soul's purpose is. We know what message we're supposed to be sharing on that very deep level. We're supposed to be following the voice of our soul. But this card coming up in the shadow position at the same time that we have this card is an indication that we're really not standing our ground against the pressures. So probably what's happened is that your soul's journey and your soul's purpose to share with humanity is one that's not in alignment with the people that you have around you, with that group that you have around you, being society, your family, your other teachers, and so on. Okay, those people were put there to not be in alignment with the teaching that you bring, to kind of throw you off your path. And so what's happening is in the shadow position is you're not standing your ground, right? When a card comes up in the shadow position, it's an indication that it means the opposite. And so this is telling you that you have not been standing your ground. You're not living in your truth of what your soul purpose is. You're not sharing those gifts the way that you had intended when you made the agreements. So this is your shadow energy this week, which is the mountains. The shadow energy is not standing your ground this week. So when opportunity presents itself for you this week, to be able to really shine through that deeper soul purpose that you have, whether that be to help people see compassion and empathy, for you to be able to help people to see the truth, even if that brings it up that you're going to be an outcast for a period of time. Stand your ground. Live your truth this week. Okay. So thank you. And we're going to move on. I am going to go through these a little bit faster than normal, just because I had my little rant at the beginning. Okay. For those of you that selected the Desert Rose this week, I will be pulling cards for you from the Osho Zen Tarot. So let's get started. Dominant energy 4. Okay, I don't know if you can see, there's a card sticking up there. That will be your card this week. Okay. You got the aloneness card this week. Those of you that selected the Desert Rose. Aloneness. Okay. This card corresponds to the number 9 in the traditional tarot. And excuse me for just one moment. I normally don't look up the meanings of the cards, but what I am doing is just looking up what the corresponding card is. The Hermit. Okay. So this card corresponds to the Hermit in the traditional tarot. So your dominant energy this week is the Hermit or aloneness. Does that mean that you're lonely this week? Those of you that selected the Desert Rose? No. As the Buddhists say, and I may be misquoting here, but the general overall intention or meaning of the quote is that there's going to be disappointments, but suffering is optional. Okay. This card similarly means for you that aloneness does not immediately correspond or coincide with loneliness. Okay, it doesn't have to. Many people can be involved in long-term relationships and be very, very lonely. Lots of people choose to be alone and choose not to be in a relationship. They are alone, but they're not necessarily lonely. So what this card is saying to those of you that selected the Desert Rose, and incidentally, desert roses are actually kind of lone creatures. They take a long time to form out in the desert all alone. So I just thought I'd tie in that energy. So what this card is telling you, those of you that selected the Desert Rose this week, is that you are being called upon to spend some time alone this week in quiet contemplation, in contemplation of who you are and who you present to the world, the mask that you wear, that you present to the world. You're being asked to pay attention to that this week. And you're being asked to really explore whether you like who you are when you are alone, because that often dictates whether you are lonely when you are alone. If you are lonely, as soon as you find yourself alone, then chances are you don't like yourself and you don't like certain aspects of yourself. And you look to others to fill you up. This is the lesson that the Hermit teaches us. That when we love ourselves fully, completely, and unconditionally, we hold within us the capacity to be alone without being lonely. So really, really explore that message this week, those of you that selected the Desert Rose, and let's have a quick look at what your shadow energy is this week. Okay, your shadow energy is sharing, and that makes perfect sense. Okay. The opposite is true. When a card appears in the shadow position, then the opposite meaning is true. So your shadow this week is that you are withholding. You are not sharing. You're not sharing your gifts. You're in this place of being alone and exploring whether you're lonely. Chances are some of this aloneness is bringing up feelings of loneliness that is making you not want to share your gifts. So for those of you that have the Desert Rose this week, explore your inner self this week. Explore the aspects of yourself that you like and you dislike. Explore your shadows. Do that inner deep work. And remember to share your gifts this week. Okay. Because even when we are in a hermited state, even when the hermit card or the aloneness card comes up for us, we're still being called upon to share our gifts. Although we're tempted not to share, we're tempted to kind of pull back and withdraw. This card is asking you to continue to share your gifts this week. Okay. All right, moving right along, because I don't want this video to run too long. I'm going to move everything over here, and we are going to get into deck number 3. For those of you that selected the Moonstone necklace this week, I will be pulling cards for you from my Animal Tarot. My Animal Tarot is actually my oldest deck. I've had this for so many years. My cards are starting to get a little ruffled. All right. So animals, let's have a card with dominant energy for those who selected deck number 3, for those who selected the Moonstone. What is the dominant energy? There we go. We have a card that flipped over here. Ooh, the Caterpillar, also the Page of Cups. Good luck and new birth. This is your card this week. Those of you that selected the Moonstone necklace. So for those of you that selected this, the Caterpillar is your dominant energy. This is an indication that you may be feeling a little bit cocooned this week. I'm going to encourage those of you that selected this stone this week to go back and also watch the section. You know, if you've skipped to this section using the timestamps, I'm going to encourage you to go back and watch the section for the desert rose as well, because I think that you'll see similarities in the message. Okay. And that happens quite often. So for those of you that selected the Moonstone this week, the Caterpillar is an indication that before you can truly rebirth yourself, before perhaps, I'm picking up for those of you that selected this week, you are in the process of birthing something new. Whether that be a new relationship, but really I'm tending towards new, something to do with your career. Maybe you have this bright new, brilliant idea or something like that. What this card is telling you is that before you can actually birth the idea and give birth to this new idea, there's going to be a period of time where you're going to be put into a cocoon, a time of quiet contemplation, a time of aloneness, a time to be able to really, really solidify your idea. Okay, so we know that when a caterpillar is born, its ultimate goal, its ultimate intention, its ultimate soul purpose is to become the beautiful butterfly or moth. But in order for the caterpillar to become the beautiful butterfly or moth, it has to go through a number of different changes and metamorphosis, including a period of time where it goes into a cocoon, where it is a hermit, where it is alone, so that it has the opportunity to really, really solidify the colors and everything that it is meant to be once it comes out of that cocoon and becomes its ultimate goal, which is that butterfly or moth. And so for those of you that have this card this week, what this card is telling you is that you have a great idea. You have a fantastic opportunity. There is lots of good luck surrounding what you want to do. And once you do birth that, it's going to be successful. But this card is telling you that there is a journey that needs to be taken before it can happen. It's not just going to happen overnight. There is going to be a process involved. Okay. So don't lose your enthusiasm. Don't lose that excitement that you have about this new project, this new idea that you're giving birth to, but understand that there is a journey that needs to happen before it can come to its full fruition. Okay. Let's have a look at what your shadow energy is this week. Okay, your shadow energy this week is the Four of Wands, or the Four of Fire. It's the green annul, harmony and peace. But the Four of Wands, if I read this as a tarot card, more so than this message here, the Four of Wands is a card of action. Anytime we have a card that comes up in the suit of fire, okay, from the tarot, it's a card of action. Now, this card came up in your shadow position. So what that's telling me is that this project that you have, that you're looking to give birth to, that you're very excited about, you have some shadow energy coming up telling me that you might not be giving it all of the action and effort and enthusiasm that you should be giving to it. Because as you go through that lull and as you go through that cocoon period that this card is telling you that you will be experiencing before you can fully birth your new idea, as you go through that, this card is telling me that you may have that lull in the action that you need to be taking. Okay. Oftentimes what happens is we come up with this brilliant idea. There's all this enthusiasm, but as it's going through the stages that it needs to go through to actually birth a new idea, we tend to pull back from it because we get a little bit bored, or we get a little bit concerned, or whatever the shadow might be. And in this one, I think part of the shadow, again, is going to be the harmony and peace aspect of it, that there's going to be some anxiousness. Okay. There's going to be a little bit of a sense of unrest as your caterpillar goes into its cocoon. You may be tempted to lose some of that momentum that you've built up about going forward with this project, and you're being asked not to lose that momentum. You're being asked to continue with that fiery energy. Okay, so I want to say thank you so much to everybody for watching this video. I encourage you to watch all three card pulls. There are similarities in the energies every single week. So if you have the time, I encourage you to watch all three. Thank you so much, and we will see you next week.